Okay, that's today's daf is daf lamed dalit, and we're continuing on our discussion yesterday. We're discussing again a person who, let's say, ma'anis, he raped his sister. So, of course, the sister is 12 years old, and she's a basula. And in the Torah it says that if you rape any basula, you're supposed to pay 50 shkalim. But now that it was your sister, so now you have a choice. You're either supposed to get malchus. If they warned you, don't do it. Don't sleep with your sister, and he slept anyway with his sister. So now Bezdin has a choice between what? Between punishing this person with malchus or making him pay the fine, because they could only punish him with one, not give him both punishments. So Reb Ula said on top of the page, he has a gezerah shava. It says tachas asheino. You're paying the 50 shkolim because you raped. And then it says by choivel b'chavero, if someone damages his friend, right, he slaps his friend and breaks his arm, let's say, the Torah says you did an avera there also with malchus. There's a lav to hit your friend. And so there's a lav, and you pay the damages. There, just like by when damaging your friend, you pay money and you don't get malchus. So also in every situation when you have a choice, mimayna or malchus, Ula says money overrides the malchus. That was the opinion of Rabbi Ula. Rabbi Yochanan said no. He has an opinion that malchus overrides, because he has a pasuk, a smikus, a pasuk, where the pasuk says, "Amakra kidei rishase." First, the Torah tells you that you only punish him for one thing that he did, and not the two averis. And then it says, "Aborn yakenu." So, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you have a choice between malchus, somebody who sinned, he's supposed to get punished, and you have a choice to give him malchus or make him pay the fine. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you give him malchus. Okay, hi, we're just beginning, and we're on the bottom of the page of Lamed Beis Amud Beis, going to Lamed Gimel. So this is where we're starting. The question is, Rabbi Yochanan, my tam ala omak Ula. The Gemara's question is, why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say like Ula? Ula has a very geschmacke gezeres shalva, which says clearly that if you have a choice between malchus and money, you should pay money. Money overrides, not the malchus. So why did Rabbi Yochanan disagree? So the Gemara answers, in came, Rabbi Yochanan had a problem. Because then you can't, the Torah says, don't sleep with your sister. And when the Torah writes a prohibition, the Torah is implying that you get malchus. But according to what you say, according to Ula, you're never going to get malchus, because you're always going to pay the money and buy your way out of this situation. So therefore, it cannot be that the Torah writes, don't do it. And always when the Torah writes, don't do it with an action, the Torah is saying, in other words, that if you do it, you're going to get malchus. And here, you're not going to be able to apply that Torah prohibition of giving somebody malchus, because he'll always be able to pay his way out. That's where Rabbi Yochanan had a problem with Ula. So the Gemara, first of all, attacks Rabbi Yochanan. First of all, we go on Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph. When somebody damages his friend, so there's a lav of lo yosef, don't whack your friend, okay? And you're paying the money. So in came baltalta lo yosef pen yosef. According to you, by choivel b'chavere, where we always pay, when you damage your friend, you're always paying the money. You're not the law, the prohibition. There's no malchus by that prohibition. So here the Torah write a prohibition, and the Torah it says you pay money. So not every prohibition that's written in the Torah has a malchus associated with it. Also, the Gemara asks Rabbi Yochanan, "Eidim zoymim enami im kain b'taltavei bin hakas rasha." The Torah says by eidim zoymim, the Torah implies that you're supposed to give malchus to an eidim zoymim. What is an eidim zoymim? Eidim zoymim, again, if two eidim say that Reuven owes money to Shimon, and they were lying, or they made up the story, and another two eidim said, how could you say testimony that Reuven owes money to Shimon because he borrowed the money, because Reuven borrowed the money? The day you claim that Reuven borrowed the money, you couldn't have been witnesses because you were with us at that time. So that we believe the second pair of eidim, and the eidim zoymim, how do we punish the Edom Zaymamin for saying false testimony. The Torah says you make them pay what they wanted to do to somebody else. They wanted to cause a loss to Reuven, so they will have to pay what they wanted to cause to Reuven. So therefore, again, but they're doing an Avera, which of saying false testimony, where the Torah says in Bin Hakas Russia that they're supposed to get Malchus. So again, there's no situation of an Edom Zaymamin getting Malchus, right? There's no situation of an Edom Zaymamin because you're always going to choose money. So Ella, so even according to Rabbi Yochanan, there is a situation by Edom Zaymamin that you would give Malchus. How? Edom Zaymamin actually kiyuma ben grusha ben chalutza. If you have Edom that say about a Kohen, hey, you, Mr. Kohen, you think you're a holy Kohen? We're saying testimony that your father married a grusha, and therefore you're a chalal. You don't have kedusha of a Kohen. So they're trying to remove the kahuna from somebody, right? And then we find out that they're Edom Zaymamin. They were proved falsely because other two Edom say that you couldn't have said testimony on the marriage. You were with us when his father got married. So what do you do with these Edom Zaymamin? You can't make them a non-Kohen because they're not Kohanim. Let's say they were Yisraelim, the Edom. So what do you do? In that case, you would give them Malchus. So we see that the Pasuk is limited, which it does say that you do get Malchus, would be in a limited case where the Edom Zaymamin are trying to make somebody into a Ben Grusha and Ben Chalutza. So therefore, in order to punish them, we give them Malchus because there is no financial punishment. And so Chayil B'Chaverik could be Nami Ikalikuma. The fact that the Torah says a prohibition that you don't damage your friend, and the Torah says you're supposed to give Malchus, that could be in a situation, Kigoin, Shiko Hakara, She'en Bai Shava Pruta. You whacked your friend and there was no it wasn't worth a penny. You didn't do damage of a penny into him. He's a shaita or whatever, and therefore there was no loss of wages, no doctor bills. So but you hit your friend. So in that case, you would have to get Malchus in that case. So that pasuk could be talking about that specific case. So now the Gemara is saying, according to Rabbi Yochanan, Ula, you're saying that sleeping with your sister, according to Ula, there's no situation where you're sleeping with your sister, you'll be chayav Malchus, because you always can buy your way out of it. Name, by your sister also, Name Ikali Kiyume by Geras, by your adult sister, where the Torah says don't sleep with your sister. So again, if you sleep with your Nara sister, your 12-year-old sister, yes, you don't get Malchus, you'd be able to pay your way out of it. But if you sleep with your adult sister, where there is no mammon, because let's say she consented, okay, so there's no tsar, it wasn't a rape, it was mefuta, so there is no knas. In that case, you would get Malchus. So the pasuk does have a situation where it will take effect. So cannot be the reason why Rabbi Yochanan did not want to learn like Ula. So the Gemara says another reason why Rabbi Yochanan did not want to learn like Ula. Amalach Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan did not want to learn like Ula. Remember, Ula had a gzeir shava of tachas, right? From tachas asheina to tachas by ayin tachas ayin by chayver b'chaverei. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan says, "Hi tachas asheina." The tachas that says this is instead of raping the person, you have to pay. That we need it miboyle kedabaya. That teaches you another teaching, so that it's not extra for a gzeir shava. We need it for something else to teach you the teaching of Abaya. Abaya said, "Amakra tachas asheina." The Torah says that you pay 50 shkalim because you did a rape. Hi tachas asheina. So the 50 shkalim is because of the ina, because you ma'anas her. Mechlal the ika boishes upagam. But there's also other payments that you have to make. Boishes, the embarrassment, pagam, loss of value, tsar, she had pain when you ma'anis her. So you would have to pay not the 50 shkalim, but that's it. You would have to pay all the other money associated with it. So that's why Rabbi Yochanan did not learn like Ula, because he needed the tachas asheina to tell you that there are other payments hinted to in the Torah that it's besides the 50 shkalim, but to teach you that there are other payments for a ma'anis. The Ula, how does he know there are other payments? Nafkele midarava. He learned that ma'anis pays other payments from Rava. Rava said, Omakra, the pasuk says, when you rape a person, when you rape a girl, it says v'nosan ha'ish hashoichiv im ema, the man that lied with her, he has to give la'avi hanara, to the father of the 12-year-old, chamishim kasef. He has to give 50 kasef. Why does the Torah say he lied with her? That means hanach shchiva chamishim. The fact that he bedded her, that's you pay the 50 shkalim. But there are other payments that the Torah hinted that for the shchiva alone you pay 50 shkalim. But there's other payments that you're supposed to make for being ma'anis her, which is boishes, bagam, and tsar probably. So that's the Gemara just finished off the discussion of why Ula and Rabbi Yochanan argued. Now the Gemara goes to the situation which we discussed briefly yesterday. The Gemara said that Eidim Zoymimim, when you have a choice by Eidim Zoymimim of Malchus and money, so the Gemara says that there was an extra riboy, an extra word in the Chumash, Kenyan Asimboy, Kashi also Yad B'Yad. The Gemara said Yad B'Yad. So therefore you pay money. Money overrides Malchus when it concerns Eidim Zoymimim. Comes along a Shita, Rabbi Elazar. I think it's Rabbi Elazar on the side. It says Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says we don't need a pasuk. Eidim zoymimim mamoina mishalmei nukaloi laki. You pay money and not malchus. Why? Mishum dalav b'nei hasraninu. Because the fact is you can't warn them. You can't warn somebody not to say false eidos, and therefore it's an impossibility to warn them. So therefore, you can't give them malchus, because the whole point of giving, to be able to whack somebody or kill somebody, is the Torah only allowed you to do that unless to make a physical hurt on somebody's body is only if he was warned. If he's not warned, you can't make a physical hurt on somebody's body. And therefore, the Gemara, the Rabbi Lezer says, you don't need any pasuk to tell me that you pay money and not malchus, because the fact is, you can never warn somebody who's in the Eidim Zoymimim Act, and therefore you can only make them pay and not give them malchus. Now, why can't I warn somebody? Amar Rava said, "Take that, I'll prove it to you." Nisrubu Amos. When are you going to warn test Eidim that if they're saying falsely, we're going to make them Zoymimim? Nisruhu b'mikara. Let's warn them like a day or two before the testimony. Amrin, they will say, Ishtalion, I forgot. I don't remember the warning. Like we said, the warning has to be very near to the Avera itself. You can't warn somebody Monday. Today's Monday. You're going to warn them, don't put on the light on Shabbos because you get skila, because it's too much in advance. It has to be right when they're about to do the Avera. Because otherwise they could say, "Oh, I forgot," even though it's highly unlikely they forgot. But since it's not clear that they're doing it on purpose, therefore warning has to prove that they're really, really bemazed. So you can't warn somebody a week before they're saying testimony that you're going to be Eidim Zoymimim if you're found false. So so then the simple way to warn these guys is Nisbu b'shas ma'isa. Warn every aide right when they're supposed to say testimony. Warn them in court that if you do this, we're gonna make you whatever you're trying to do to this person, to this person, we're gonna make it happen to you. So then nobody's gonna say aidis. Parshi v'loy misahade. Nobody's gonna come to say aidis. It's too big of a risk. So nisruhu lebesoif. So then let's warn them after they said their testimony. Ma'ida hava hava. Whatever happened. They can't take back their testimony, and therefore it's not a good warning. Warning has to precede the potential avera. So therefore, it's impossible to warn somebody when it comes to edis. So maskif law. So therefore, since you can't warn somebody, you can never give malchus by edim zoymimim. Therefore, the Torah always meant that you're supposed to pay money. Maskif law Abaya says v'nisruhu b'soich k'dei dibar. Why don't you warn him right after he said the testimony? Right after he said the testimony, Torch K'dei Dibor means that within a second after he said the testimony, which is part of the testimony, which he could still retract his testimony and give him time to retract. So you're not scaring him before he says the testimony. Let him say his testimony. A second afterward, you warn him, if you said false, we're going to make it happen to you, and we give him a second to retract. That should be enough. So we didn't scare him. And Rav Acha Rav Ika has another solution. The Nisra Bahu, we could warn Edim Zaymimim, the Ikara from the very beginning. The Nirmaz Bahu Remize. Warn him like a week before, so he's not scared. When he gets to the court, we'll just, make a hand motion. Remember what we said to you a week before. And therefore he's not going to be feel under pressure. He already had it settled in his mind that he could be potentially being Edim Zaymim. So what they're both proving is that it is possible to warn somebody in Edim Zaymim. So again, if you could warn somebody in Edim Zaymim, why would the Torah automatically choose that you get pay money over Malkus? You could still get Malkus if you're Edim Zaymim. Hadar Amar Abaya says Lav Milsihi. I have another reason why Edim Zaymim don't get Malkus. The Amri, we never warn Edim Zaymim. If you want to say that Edim Zaymim need Hasra, Kilay Masrinim Behu, like Katlinanu. Then if we don't warn them, we wouldn't kill them. So let's say Edim are trying to say that so-and-so was Mechalel Shabbos, right? But what are they really essence trying to do? Let's say they're false Edis. They're trying to say that so-and-so, let's say call him Ruvain, was Mechalel Shabbos. It never happened. He was never warned. The whole thing is made up, right? So they're trying to kill somebody without warning. So when the Torah says you have to do what he tried to do to somebody else, means that you have to try to kill the Edim Zaymim without warning. That's what the Gemara says. Is it possible the Inhu Baya Kato B'lay Asra? These Edim Zaymim tried to kill somebody without warning. The Inhu Baya Hasra, we should give them warning. We don't need to give an Edim Zaymim warning. The fact is, the Edim Zaymim are trying to do to mess over somebody and without a Hasra. So they themselves don't need Hasra, because the Torah says by Edim Zaymim, you do to him what he planned to do to somebody else, to do to his brother, just like he's trying to kill his brother by saying he was Mechal Shabbos, and that was without warning. So also when we kill the Edim Zaymim or do something to Edim Zaymim, we don't have to warn them. So the Torah exempt Edim Zaymim from warning. So if the Torah exempt Edim Zaymim from warning, therefore there's no warning by Edim Zaymim, and therefore they pay money. There's no such a thing of warning Edim Zaymim. Maskif lo Rab Sama b'Revi Yirmiyah. So Rab Sama b'Revi ask Elame Arta ben Gerusha ben Chalutza. When the Torah says that you do give Malkus by a ben Gerusha and ben Chalutza, the loy mikasha zoman komis Rabbi, you're not including them in the kasha zoman. The reason why we give Malkus to somebody who tried to make somebody a Ben Garusha, Ben Chalutza, is because Hoya bin Hakos Rasha, the Torah says, Loisana, don't say false. And you can't make this guy into a non-Kohen because Edom are Yisraelim. So at best, the Torah is telling you, in that case, give him Malkus. Okay, in that case, Liboya Hasra. In that case, we should require Edom Zaymimim to have Asra. Since we have a situation where an Edim Zaymimim has the ability to get Malkus, and you're telling me that Edim Zaymimim, in order to give Malkus to somebody, has to have a warning. So therefore, and this is not from Kasha Zaman, this is from the Pasuk Loisana V'Reachav, Oyabin Akas Rasha. So in that case, in that particular case, those type of Edim Zaymimim would need a warning before you give them Malkus. Answers the Gemara, Amakra, the Pasuk says, Mishpat echad yilechem, Mishpat hashav lekulchem. It has to be one rule for everything, one rule across the board. We establish that Edim Zaymimim, the Torah exempt warning by Edim Zaymimim. So even if they would come to say that somebody is a Ben Gerusha Ben Chalutza, we would give them Malkus, even though they weren't warned that they're going to get Malkus if they're found false. So therefore, this is the conclusion of the Gemara. The Gemara is saying Edim Zaymim is like the only Aveira in the Torah, is one of the Aveiras in the Torah. Generally, there's no warning for it, and because there's no warning, you pay money. And even if in a case of Edim Zaymim, where we would give Malkus, such that like by Ben Grusha and Ben Chalusa, even in that case, we wouldn't give a warning to Edim Zaymim, and we wouldn't give a warning to Edim Zaymim, and we would give them Malkus. So if you want to ask somebody a good riddle, you can ask them a question. Where in the Torah a person can be over a lav, he transgress a lav in the Torah without warning, and you would give him Malkus. So this is the answer is by Edim Zaymim. If he tried to make somebody a Ben Gerusha and Ben Chalutza, and they found out to be Edim Zaymim, we would give them Malkus. Now the Gemara goes to another situation that will take us to the end of the Gemara here. Rav Sheshet b'rei Revi Omar. Rav Sheshet b'rei Revi says, we had a pasuk that said, but when somebody whacks his friend, right? When you hit your friend, the Torah, you did two averas. You did an avera of now you owe him money, and also you did an avera of a lav in the Torah. So the Torah says you pay money and you don't pay malchus. And we had the reason why is because there's an extra word in the Torah. Kasha Kenya nosim boy. He has to give money. So Rav Sheshet is trying to say we don't need that extra pasuk. If you damage your friend, you always pay money and you don't get the malchus. I know it from another source, mehacha, from over here. Why? So look at this pasuk. The pasuk on the screen, v'chinatzu anashim yachtav. The Torah has a situation in the Torah. If two men having an argument, and one of the wives joined to protect her husband, let's say, and one man was trying to hit the other guy, and instead of hitting the man, he hit his pregnant wife. V'yatzu lo dal, and a miscarriage resulted. V'lo yaseh, and nobody was hurt. It means the woman did not get killed. Then he has to pay money for miscarrying a child, right? Causing a miscarriage, right? That's onish onish. But dim osanya, now the Torah says in osanya, if there is a tragedy, what happened? Probably the woman died. Now his intention was to kill the man, but he wasn't her husband. But instead he killed his wife. So v'nasat nefesh tachat nefesh, he has to pay for it with his life. Okay, he has to pay for it with his life. That means he gets killed. Even though he was intentioned to kill somebody else, if he was warned, don't hit your friend, and he hit his wife, they would kill him too, according to the Chachamim. Now let's examine this pasuk. When two men will have an argument, and they hit a pregnant woman, and she miscarried. It's an argument, and it's a deadly argument. That means that the guy who's about to whack his friend, he wants to do a deathly blow, a knockout blow. Then if he did kill the woman, you actually take his life. So the Gemara says, hey, Chedame, what is the pasuk talking about? If they never warned him, right, don't give that deathly karate blow. So then, Amai Mikto, why would he get killed if he happened to kill the woman? I mean, he wasn't warned. Elapshita, the pasuk is talking about the Asrebe, that they did warning. Okay, they warned him. And therefore, but the Torah said in the beginning, if you remember, if there was no, so he was warned, don't make this deathly blow. And therefore, if the woman did not die, just miscarried, he has to pay the money. But he was warned, right? So he is warned, don't hit. And he was warned that if you kill somebody, you're going to die. And huadin, we could say that if she's not going to die, you're going to get malchus. It's an automatic extension that if she's not going to die, you're going to get malchus. And nevertheless, the Torah says you pay money. So that's a good proof. The pasuk says el pshita the asrbe. The pasuk is talking about they did warn him. The fact that he was warned for a severe avera of misa automatically includes that he was warned that if there was no damages, you are being over a lav, which potentially there's malchus. So now it's a situation where clearly the Torah is addressing a person who's chayav malchus and money at the same time. The Torah says, if there's no damages, then you make him pay the money. So clearly is a good example of where the Torah favors money over malchus. Maskif law Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi asked the question, how do you know that? Maybe it's not. Just because they warned him that if you kill somebody, that you're going to get killed, doesn't mean that they automatically warned him that if you hit somebody and they don't die, you're doing a big avera, and you potentially are dealing with malchus. Maybe the Torah wants you, in order to be a warning effective, the warning has to be specific on malchus. That means if you hit somebody, you're going to get malchus. The fact that they did not say it, the Chumash is talking about a case where he's not warned, and that's why you pay money. That's one question that they asked. So maybe the Torah probably talking about he wasn't warned. That's why money is favored, because he wasn't warned. That's why the Torah didn't say you give him malchus. But even if you want to say that just because you warn somebody for the more difficult punishment, it's automatically considered as if you warned them on the lighter punishment. How do you know that a person gets more scared when you warn him that he's going to die? Perhaps, of course, death is worse punishment than malchus, that's for sure. But how do you know that it's a good warning? How do you know? Maybe people get more scared when you warn them about malchus. How do you know that warning somebody that they're going to die is more severe? Maybe people are more scared to get whipped. Mimai de misa chamura. How do you know that misa is more severe? We go to Amud Beis. Dilma malchus chamer. Maybe getting the fact that they're risking their lives to get they're risking themselves that they might get malchus is more severe. And just because the guy got warned, the guy that was about to make this deathly blow, he was only warned that he could potentially die if somebody gets killed. That's not enough of a warning that you're going to get malchus. And how do you know people are more scared of? How do you know people are more scared of torture than the actual death? Okay, the Amar Rav says in the Nach you find that. We find that Nebuchadnezzar made a statue not for avodah zarah purposes, but he wanted people who it looked like it was avodah zarah, and he said that if you're not going to bow down to this statue, then I will throw you into the gas chamber, the fiery furnace. And the Chumash the Tanakh says that Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah risked their lives, and they did not bow, and they were thrown into this Kivshon Eish, this fiery furnace. And what happened? They survived. We mentioned them in Slichas as well. Whoever saved them should save who should answer us. That means that's what we said. Hu Yanedu. So, but Rav made a fantastic comment. In the Amar Rav says, if they would have been tortured and whipped, they would have actually bowed to the statue, because being whipped is a much more, people are more nervous about that. They that's something more scarier to them. So therefore, so how do you know that the warning of Misa would apply to the warning of Malchus? So it's either Rav Sama asked Rav Ashi. It doesn't know who his father was. Was his father Asi or Ashi? But anyway, he asked this Rav Sama asked this Rav Ashi that you can't compare. Yes, but the torturing by Nebuchadnezzar is considered much scarier because there's no limit to it. There's no number to it. They keep torturing you like Lahad or like the Nazis. Even if they made an count, they missed the count, they started again. So Yamach Shemam. So therefore, in that case, that's much more scarier than Misa. But here, Bezdin, they have a finite number that they're going to give Malchus, and it's more, then that's not kind of the Malchus that they're going to totally wipe you out. So, would you not make a difference between a whipping that has a limit to a whipping that doesn't have a limit? Sure, a whipping that doesn't have a limit is much more scarier than the actual fear of death. Maskif Lord Acha by Minahar Pagoy. So Rabbi Achar bar Nahar Pagoy asked one question. We always assume that the V'nasata Nefesh Tachas Nefesh, by always here in the pasuk, if there was a tragedy, he pays for it with his life. According to Rebbe, you don't pay for it with his life. In fact, because you killed the woman and your intention was to kill the man, Rebbe says, when the Torah says he pays for it with his life, doesn't mean you actually pay your life. He has to pay money. So according to Rebbe, the whole pasuk could be talking about you're not warning, because we're not killing anybody in this pasuk, even if the woman dies. So the whole pasuk is talking about when there was no warning over here. And if there's no warning, that's why if the woman did not die, you pay money. So how do you know? So therefore, that pasuk is not a proof that the Torah favors Mammon over Malchus. The Torah does not favor Mammon over Malchus. Ella, so the Gemara finds another source, and this will take us to the end. Ella Amma Rav Yaakov and Harpakoid Mishmei Rava. Rav Yaakov said in the name of Rava, Mahacha. The Torah is right over here, very clearly. Listen to this. The Torah says if you hit somebody and he ended up in the hospital, okay? Im yakum v'salech b'chutz, then he survives and starts walking outside al mishantai with his previous strength. V'nika hamaka, the guy who hit him is innocent. All he has to pay is the doctor bills and loss of wages. That's what the Torah says. What do you mean he's innocent? What do you mean he's not? Why should the Torah tell you that he's innocent? That means I needed the Torah tell me that he's innocent. The fact that the other guy is walking around on the street, we should think that this guy gets killed. The person that he hit didn't get killed, actually got healed and is now walking on the street. So what does it mean he's innocent, that we don't kill him? The Torah is seemingly referring to a guy who gave a real deadly blow to somebody, and he survived the hospital. So what is the Torah talking about? Ella, Malami, the Torah is teaching you, you actually put him in jail. And we waited out. The emis, if the victim died, katlinin late, then we kill the assailant. The eloimis, but if he didn't die, the victim didn't die, shifta yitain, you pay the loss of wages, and you pay the hospital doctor bills. So Heichadami, what is the Chumash talking about? Either like Asrbe, if the Torah says we're not warning him, he wasn't warned when he gave this deadly blow. Amai Mikta, why would we ever think that you kill him? He wasn't warned. Ela Pshita, the Torah's Chumash is talking about a situation, the Asrbe, that they warned him, right? Okay, so they warned him. So if the guy would have died, we would have killed him. The fact is, the guy survived the hospital and did not die. So, but they did warn him that if he's going to die, you're going to be dead. So, and it's automatically that he's warned for that for the lighter avera, which means that if the guy's not going to die, you're actually being over, you're actually transgressing the avera of hitting somebody, which potentially has malchus. And now we're talking about a situation where the guy was warned and he has malchus and money he has to pay. The Torah says, the Torah says you pay the wages, you pay the lost wages and doctor bills. So we see that the Torah favors money over malchus. So now the Gemara asks the same question. How do you know the fact that he's warned for that he might die is automatically assumed that he's warned for malchus? Maybe a person in his mind is much scarier to get malchus than to actually die. Die is a 1 second thing, but to get malchus, maybe that's a scarier situation. And maybe the Chumash wants you to warn somebody for malchus, not to assume that it's presumed. Just because you warned him that he's going to die doesn't mean that he's automatically warned that he's going to get that he's dealing with a malchus situation. Maybe you need a separate warning for the malchus situation. How do you know? Maybe in his mind, malchus is more severe than death. The Amar Rav said, if they would have tortured and whipped they would have bowed. So even if you, how do you know Misa is more chamer? Maybe Malchus is more chamer. So there's two questions over here. First of all, even if you want to say Misa is more chamer, maybe the Torah has exeris akasiv that you have to do separate warnings for everything. For Misa, for Malchus, you can't assume that warning for one includes the warning for the next. And even if you want to say that Misa, even if you want to say that it does include, but how do you know Misa is more severe? Maybe Malchus is more severe. And therefore, a warning on Misa does not automatically include a warning on Malchus. Okay. So Same asked Ravashi, certainly a Malchus of the Torah is much lighter than the death. And that's not as scary because the Torah's Malchus is limited. And therefore, if it's finite, if he's warned for Misa, it automatically includes a warning on Malchus. There, by Kananya Shoma Azariah, it was a torture without limits. It's infinite. There, it was much more scarier. If they were threatened with that, they actually would have bowed to the idol. Again, it's not an idol. It was more like a statement statue but they wanted to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. Anyway, so Maskif Law Marmori. So Marmori asked the question. We always assumed that the guy is innocent, the guy is put into jail, and we put him in jail simply because he did it on purpose, and we want to know whether we're supposed to kill him or not, the assailant. How do you know? Maybe it's a situation where he wasn't warned, and we still put him in jail. Why do you put the assailant in jail? Because he's not really an assailant. How do you know that we're talking about Mazid? And the part is telling you that we're making him innocent from being killed. Maybe he actually killed by accident. And the reason why he's jailed, we want to know whether we make him go to Golas, to the Ari Miklat, because he killed by accident. So that's why he's put in jail. Really, the Torah is talking about a situation he wasn't warned. It was an accident. He wasn't warned. And yet, you put him in jail simply because you want to know if the guy died, he would go to Golos. If the guy did not die, he would just pay the money, and that's it. So the whole situation is talking about whether he wasn't warned, and therefore the Torah favored money. But could be in a case where there is a situation when he was warned, and you're faced with Malchus and Merman, maybe the Torah would favor Malchus over money. Kasha, that's difficult. So again, the Gemara wanted to prove that you don't need a pasuk just from the conversation of the Chumash. You could always assume by Chayvel B'Chaveroi the Torah favors money over Malchus, and then the Gemara refuted it. But the fact is that even if a person's warned, don't hit somebody because you're doing a Aveira of Lo Yosef, he would still pay money and not pay the get Malchus, because there's an extra pasuk Kenyan Osambai that Chayvel B'Chaveroi, we favor money over Malchus anyway. We favor money over Malchus. Okay, so this is where we'll stop by Rish Lakish. I'm going to give him Lamed Beis.
Thanks.